It's 10 a.m. Friday, May 21st here in Seoul. You're tuned into our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Yoon Jung-min, filling in for Kim Mo-gyun. Let's start with the headlines. Ahead of his summit with U.S. President Joe Biden, South Korean President Moon Jae-in met House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Capitol Hill. They discussed various issues, including COVID-19, matters related to the Korean Peninsula, and the economy. South Korean authorities have decided to extend the current social distancing level by another 3 weeks due to COVID-19 concerns. The country added 561 more infections today. Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire following days of intense fighting. U.S. President Joe Biden has welcomed the truce. Our top story this morning, President Moon Jae-in has started his official schedule in the U.S. ahead of his first summit with U.S. President Joe Biden at the White House on Friday local time. A matter of hours ago, he visited Capitol Hill to meet House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Our senior Blue House correspondent Kim Min-ji has the details.
President Moon Jae-in on a working visit to the U.S. has highlighted the importance of cooperation between Seoul and Washington to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. He met on Thursday with Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and other members of Congress at Capitol Hill.
오늘 의원님들과의 만남으로부터 시작될 한미 간의 대화가 한반도 평화는 물론 코로나 극복과 경제 회복, 기후변화 대응에 이르기까지 양국 협력을 더욱 깊게 하고 전 세계의 연대를 이끄는 계기가 되길 기대합니다.
President Moon asked for support for denuclearization and peace efforts on the Korean Peninsula, noting close coordination between South Korea and the U.S. as the Biden administration mapped out its new North Korea policy. Pelosi stressed their bilateral relationship is not just based on security, but is also a personal one, saying the U.S. is blessed by the contributions made by Korean Americans. She also briefly touched upon the wartime sex slavery issue between South Korea and Japan, saying she hopes to see justice, referring to a resolution on comfort women passed by the House in 2007. The speaker added that she brought the issue up during talks with former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe multiple times. Pelosi also thanked President Moon for his leadership to try and achieve denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula, as well as his efforts on addressing climate change.
We look forward to hearing what you have to say about security in terms of the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, about how we can work together on the climate issue, and thank you for your extraordinary leadership in that regard, our cooperation to fight the pandemic, and again, in so many ways, to benefit from Korea's being in the forefront of innovation as we go forward to make the future better for the people of the world.
Separately, Democrat Representative Brad Sherman proposed a bill that calls for U.S. efforts to declare a formal end to the Korean War and for Washington to engage with North Korea and establish a permanent communication channel. The bill is the first of its kind in the U.S. that calls for a declaration to formally end the war. The 1950-53 Korean War ended with an armistice. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
North Korea will be a key topic at Friday's summit between Presidents Moon and Biden. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Thursday that the regime is expected to be high on the agenda. The summit comes as the Biden administration has completed its policy review on North Korea. Psaki added that the climate change, economic ties, and China are also on the table. However, she ruled out the possibility of President Biden asking his South Korean counterpart to join the U.S.-led initiative known as QUAD. In addition, Psaki said the U.S. welcomes the opportunity to discuss ways to support South Korea's fight against COVID-19. Seoul wants a vaccine swap deal or a technology transfer with Washington. Staying with the president's visit on Thursday morning, Moon made a visit to the Arlington Nat'l Cemetery. South Korean officials say he wanted to show his administration's commitment to a stronger South Korea-U.S. alliance. Our Hong Yu reports on that and the rest of the president's schedule in Washington.
A day ahead of the South Korea-U.S. summit, President Moon Jae-in on Thursday visited the Arlington Nat'l Cemetery, which is America's largest military cemetery. It is the final resting place for more than 400,000 U.S. veterans, including those who died in the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. He paid his respects at the tomb of the unknown soldier. It's a tune for those who sacrificed their lives for peace and freedom in a foreign land, and he donated a plaque while he was there. It read in memory of the unknown soldiers and their noble sacrifices.
The wreath highlights that South Korea's tradition and development are maintained at the sacrifice of its allies, including the U.S.
President Moon told U.S. officials at the event that South Korea has worked tirelessly to find the remains of unfound American soldiers and vowed to safely return them home.
국가를 위해서 희생하고 헌신하는 분들은 마지막 한 분까지 차례를 돌려드리고 최상의 예우와 보상을 하는 것이 국가의 책임이라고 믿습니다.
He added that he will strengthen and develop the long-enduring alliance between South Korea and the U.S. when he meets President Biden. In fact, Biden has invited Moon to join a ceremony when he awards the Medal of Honor for the first time since taking office to an American veteran of the Korean War. The event takes place on Friday and again emphasizes the strength of their ironclad alliance. President Moon also visited the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial to express his will to overcome COVID-19 crisis through the Korean New Deal policy he proposed last year. The policy aims to make South Korea a global economic leader. President Moon has previously said that President Roosevelt, who achieved unity in the face of a national crisis during the Great Depression, is his role model. Roosevelt is also a role model to President Biden, who is promoting an enormous investment plan aimed at helping working families and boosting America's public sector. He is calling it the Build Back Better plan, not that dissimilar to Roosevelt's famous New Deal. President Moon's visit to the memorial in the middle of a global crisis triggered by the pandemic shows South Korea and the U.S. can cooperate in diverse fields, not just militarily, but be strong economic partners as well. 홍유, Arirang News.
Unable to bring down the daily number of new COVID-19 cases, South Korean authorities have decided to extend the current social distancing level for 3 additional weeks. This means the nationwide gathering of 5 or more will still continue, as well as restrictions to business operations in the capital region and the city of Busan. For more on this, we have our Kim Do-yeon on the line. Do-yeon, what does this mean?
Jungmin, first, South Korea reported 561 new cases of COVID-19 on Friday, of which 542 were local transmissions. The daily caseload continues to hover above 500. That said, as you've mentioned, the country will extend its current distancing measures for another 3 weeks. Seoul metropolitan area and the city of Busan are at level 2, while the rest of the country is at 1.5. This means that in the level 2 areas, restaurants and cafes can only serve customers on-site until 10 p.m., along with other measures. Also, the nationwide ban on gatherings of 5 or more people remains in place. The Prime Minister said the decision comes as the country is at a crucial point in the battle against COVID-19.
Please continue participating in virus prevention with us until we get our normalized back. The government is trying its best to stabilize the situation before July, when inoculations start on a massive scale.
Now, speaking of COVID-19 vaccines, has it been shown that the inoculations are starting to help? Also, any updates on vaccine supplies?
Yes, Jungmin. Authorities cited certain cases where a potential outbreak was prevented because of inoculations, especially for cases that were spotted at nursing hospitals and care centers, with many of the related parties vaccinated at least with the first dose. Cluster infections were kept small. In terms of the supply, 297,000 doses of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine arrived in South Korea around 1 a.m. on Friday. This batch is part of South Korea's deal with the COVAX facility. They'll largely use for first shots for people over 75 who have been eligible to get vaccinated since April 1st. That had been on hold temporarily, with available doses currently being used for second shots only. That's all I have for this hour. I'll be back with more in a later newscast. Jungmin?
Well, thank you, Do-yeon, for the updates. The EU and the European Parliament have agreed on a unified COVID-19 vaccine passport, which could be introduced next month. Portugal, currently chairing the EU presidency, announced Thursday details of the passport, which will prove a person has been fully vaccinated, is fully cured, or has tested negative before traveling. It will initially be used only for travel within the EU. It's a part of plans to reopen travel across Europe in time for the summer. With Italy chairing the 2021 Global Health Summit, leaders joining the virtual meeting are set to adopt a joint declaration on a number of health issues, including the COVID-19 pandemic. Our Ising-jae has more.
On Friday, Italy, the chair of the G20, and the European Commission will co-host the Global Health Summit in Rome. Hosted virtually due to the pandemic, the summit is an opportunity for G20 and invited leaders, heads of international and regional organizations, and representatives of global health bodies to share lessons learned from the pandemic. This year's summit will build on the COVID-19 global response, a pledging marathon which last year raised $19 billion from donors worldwide for universal access to treatments, tests, and vaccines. Members in attendance will seek global cooperation for the prevention of future health crises, as well as upping the supply of COVID-19 vaccines. After the meeting, it's reported a Rome Declaration will be adopted, which will contain principles to promote international cooperation in the field of sustainable health. According to Reuters, the declaration could also involve the voluntary sharing of intellectual property rights for vaccines. The European Parliament on Wednesday urged the EU to back a push for a temporary waiver on COVID-19 vaccine patents. Lawmakers voted to narrowly approve an amendment calling on the bloc to support the Indian and South African World Trade Organization initiative for a temporary waiver on intellectual property rights for COVID-19 vaccines, equipment, and treatments, while urging pharmaceutical companies to share their knowledge and data. EU leaders this month said they were willing to discuss patent waivers after U.S. President Joe Biden backed the plan. However, they call for more details while urging other major producers to first boost their own vaccine exports. Ising-jae, Arirang News.
Following 11 days of intense fighting and hundreds of civilian deaths, Israel and Hamas have agreed to an Egypt-brokered ceasefire. Officials say it will take effect from 2 a.m. Friday local time. Our Kim Hyo-sun reports.
After nearly a 2-week-long battle between the Palestinian Islamist group Hamas and Israel, the two parties have agreed to a ceasefire that was brokered by Cairo. Officials say the truce will be effective from early Friday. After negotiating the ceasefire with both parties, Egypt announced that a security delegation will be dispatched both to Gaza and Israel to monitor and help stabilize the agreement.
Mr. President, allow me to share with you the fact that the efforts made by Egypt and the other parties have borne fruit with a ceasefire very shortly. We hope that it'll last. Any life that we can save warrants all of the efforts that we are making. And we're making as many efforts as possible and up to the last minute possible.
Earlier, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's security cabinet reportedly approved the ceasefire, halting its military operations in the Gaza Strip. His office explained that the Egyptian initiative called for a, quote, mutual and unconditional ceasefire, adding that both Israel and Hamas accepted Cairo's proposal to discuss more Gaza-related issues going forward. Both sides seem to be framing the ceasefire as a victory. The decision comes after pressure from U.S. President Joe Biden that expects, quote, a significant de-escalation. The White House also explained that Tel Aviv appears to have largely achieved its military goals.
Our views, we believe the Israelis have achieved significant military objectives that they laid out to achieve in relation to protecting their people and to responding to the thousands of rocket attacks from Hamas. And so that's why, in part, that we feel they are in a position to start winding their operation down.
The breakthrough comes amid continued pleas from the international community to halt the hostilities that have killed over 230 Palestinians, including many children, and injured thousands more.
The fighting must stop immediately. I appeal to all parties to cease hostilities now, and I reiterate my call on all sides for an immediate ceasefire. The hostilities have caused serious damage to vital civilian infrastructure in Gaza, including roads and electricity lines, contributing to a humanitarian emergency.
Israel says at least 12 Israelis have been killed, adding over 4,000 rockets have been fired toward the country from Gaza since the violence flared up. Kim Hye-sun, Arirang News.
And U.S. President Joe Biden praised the ceasefire, expressing gratitude towards the end of the worst flare of violence between Israel and Hamas since 2014. He delivered his remarks from the White House on Thursday after the two sides tentatively agreed to end the 11 days of fighting through an Egyptian brokered ceasefire. Biden said he sees a genuine opportunity to make progress toward establishing lasting peace in the region. Palestinian residents of the Gaza Strip went out from their homes in the night celebrating as the ceasefire took effect. More than 240 people have died in the conflict, mostly in Gaza. A fishing boat carrying a South Korean and other nationals has been captured off the coast of Ghana by suspected pirates. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, 30 crew members were on board and at least 5, including the Korean captain, 3 Chinese and 1 Russian, were kidnapped on Wednesday local time in waters of the West African country. The ministry has set up an emergency response team and is now working with Ghana, Nigeria, Russia, and other countries to secure the crew's release. South Korean exports soared by more than half in the first 20 days of May compared to the same period last year. Preliminary data from the Korea Customs Service on Friday showed outbound shipments for the first 20 days of May grew 53.3% on year to around $31.1 billion. Daily average exports also rose by over 59%. Exports of auto parts soared more than 220%, and shipments of petroleum products and automobiles surged almost 150% respectively. Overseas sales of wireless communication devices and semiconductors also saw improvement. South Korea producer prices in April edged up for the 6th consecutive month due to the higher prices of industrial goods. The Bank of Korea said Friday that its producer price index, a key barometer of the future of consumer inflation, was up 0.6% on months. Compared to the same period last year, the figure was up 5.6%. The central bank said prices of agricultural goods fell, but industrial goods increased by about 1% due to the rising prices of raw materials. South Korean household earnings rose slightly in the first quarter, but that was only because of the government's relief payments. Consumer sentiment was up, but income from salaries, businesses, and rental properties were all down. Our Kim Jae-hee tells us more.
South Korean household incomes were slightly higher from January to March compared to a year earlier, but that was only because of the government's relief payments. According to Statistics Korea on Thursday, the average monthly household income in the first quarter was up 0.4% on year to around 4.38 million Korean won, or about $3,870. This was due to a surge in money from the state known as transfer income, as relief payments for small businesses, freelancers, and the self-employed went out to millions of people. Transfer income jumped 16.5%, while salary income was down 1.3% for its steepest fall on record for the first quarter. Business income dropped 1.6% and property income 14.4%.
Salary and business income both declined as a resurgence of the pandemic eliminated jobs in the service industry, such as the accommodation and food sectors.
Meanwhile, household spending went up slightly. Average monthly household spending in the first quarter came to about 3.3 million won, or around $2,900, up 0.8% on year.
Consumer spending increased slightly at the beginning of this year as the wholesale and retail sectors improved, and consumer sentiment also recovered. This led to a rise of 0.8% in household spending.
Spending on alcohol saw the fastest growth in 5 years, surging by more than 17%. Expenditures on home maintenance, furniture, and lighting were up by around half as people spent more time at home. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
Good morning. It's another murky, wet start to the day in most parts. The capital region will see drizzle for this morning, while other inland areas will see rain letting up in the late afternoon. So have a small umbrella and warmer jacket on your way out. Along with rain and dark skies, top temperatures will drop even further today in Seoul and its surrounding regions. Afternoon highs will hardly make it to the 20s. Other regions will also have a breezy day, so Seoul, Gwangju, Chuncheon will only make it to 20 degrees Celsius, Daejeon topping out at 19 degrees. But those in Jeju will enjoy a sunny day with very strong UV rays today. Well, today is Soman, the second summer season term out of 6 already. And our ancestors believed it starts to really feel like summer after Soman. Well, temperatures will return to the warm side again for the weekend under lots of sunshine. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for now. Thanks for watching. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Goodbye.